Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. Fifth Avenue at the turn of the century, long before the Easter Parade went commercial, so you'll notice no celebrities. But the film is important as one of the first outdoor or newsreel uses of the motion picture camera, and theater audiences were excited by just seeing Fifth Avenue without being there in person. The plaza, 59th Street and Central Park South, quite recognizable more than 4 generations later. Although Griffith made hundreds of 1- and 2-reelers for Biograph, only a handful, no more than 20, were westerns. And many of those, like this one, were decidedly not traditional cowboy movies. Blanche Sweet, described in the 1912 Biograph bulletin for this film as, quote, "the goddess, the prettiest and best-natured girl that ever graced this little mining town," unquote. She is looked after by her gold mining uncle. Blanche Sweet was also at this time the golden treasure of the Biograph Company. Mining stories usually exploited the contrast in wardrobe and manners between East and West. The dude hadn't expected to strike gold so soon. A snake. The young miner, Bluegrass Tom, is played by Charles West, another Biograph stock company reliable. Blanche Sweet was to make a successful transition to talkies. Though she ostensibly retired in the 30s, she never lost interest or enthusiasm and turned up in the 70s, in her own 80s, in films made for television. Though the photography is by Griffith's ace, Billy Bitzer, the camera, curiously, doesn't pan, and the whole right side of the screen is reserved for the uncle's comedy bit. Sally is played by Dorothy Bernard, another of Biograph's busiest and most versatile players. Tom seems to find brunettes equally fascinating. Sally asks Gertrude about Tom. Gertrude explains he's hers and goes out to remind him of this. In 1910, Griffith started filming in California regularly. The westerns shot in the Hollywood Hills had a good deal more grandeur and conviction than those that up until then had been shot in the wilds of Fort Lee, New Jersey. sister tries to explain to sister. And then Miss Sweet then plays beautifully one of the finest acting situations, the woman who has loved and lost in traditional stage technique. Tom takes Sally to his cabin. One of Tom's minor friends watches carefully. Tom now asks Sally to guard his savings while he's in the mine. Sally suggests Tom return east with her, and with his money. Tom is not so sure he's ready to go that far with Sally. But they go back to Gertrude's cabin and stash the money. Tom is due back at the mine. Gertrude starts to leave the camp, but she hears voices. The robbery would hurt Tom more than Sally. They hear Gertrude's screams. The thieves realize Sally saw them without their masks. Cut her throat? No, they have a better idea. Movies were still too young to have developed special effects departments, but often off-the-cuff work by prop men produced remarkably convincing results. Smoke blown in through the walls and fire pots in front of the camera seem primitive devices in the face of much later disaster spectacles, but they worked, and they worked well. The showdown between the robbers and the posse. Tom leads the posse. remember the money. The dude, whom we and Gertrude have met only once in the film, has struck it rich. A happy ending for Gertrude, somewhat overly convenient, even for a 1912 one-reeler, especially a reeler directed by the master D.W. Griffith. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. In Don't Park There, Will Rogers pans the mechanical monsters which were replacing the horse as man's best friend and rapidly becoming his worst enemy. It starts with a perfect example of a sight gag, business which misleads the audience, suggesting one thing and delivering something else. Harold Lloyd was a master at it. So was Will Rogers. Will plays his then popular Jubilo, farm country character. Doan's, of course, is a parody of the famous Sloane's liniment. If Jubilo is going to the city, he should be extra careful. In 1908, 87 million Americans owned 200,000 autos. In the year of this film, there were over 15 million on the road. And of course, by mid-century, over 50 million. It looks like a hitching post. These films that Will Rogers made for Hal Roach seem to fit the Rogers image so thoroughly that it has always been assumed that Rogers wrote them. Not at all. In the late 1970s, Hal Roach revealed that Rogers' input was nil, other than for his presence, which of course is what they wanted most. But Roach's staff became skillful at dreaming up situations and dialogue titles that matched the Rogers personality exactly. Of course, when sound came in, Rogers did make more of a personal contribution, taking scripts and totally reshaping the dialogue to fit his own style. Unbilled, but nonetheless co-star of this picture is the Model T Ford. Many of them, in fact, then affectionately known as the Flivver or Tin Lizzie. In 1923 and 4, the Model T was at the height of its stardom. 2 million sold each year, 9,000 made every day. In a half a century, the cars have changed, but the parking problem hasn't. Film comedies of motoring misadventures have always been well received. W.C. Field's onslaught in a series of cars in If I Had a Million, Laurel and Hardy's famous wholesale traffic jam in Two Tars, and the recent British Genevieve. Every parking space is taken all the way to San Francisco. When turning a corner, follow the white arrows. course, this really is Los Angeles, where crowds regularly gathered to watch the many movie chases made there in the streets. Despite the endless gags about Model Ts, it was a hardy machine. In 1909, the two winning cars in the New York to Seattle race were Fords, and stunts were dreamed up to offset the jokes. In 1910, two boys aged 11 and 14 drove a T from Denver to Spokane, and a T was the first auto to cross the Gobi Desert. Jubilo still has no liniment, but his car has been decorated with tickets like wallpaper. The Hal Roach riders throw us a real zinger for the finish. Ahead lay astonishing progress for the automobile, if not for parking. For Will Rogers, increasing fame as a writer, broadcaster, and actor, until death claimed him and Wiley Post in their 1935 plane crash. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. Enoch Arden was a 1911 turning point in the career of director D.W. Griffith. It was his most ambitious production to date, made in 2 reels instead of the customary 1, although the Biograph Company insisted that it go into the theaters as 2 films. Annie Lee is played by Linda Arvidsson, who was, although the company then didn't realize it, the first Mrs. D.W. Griffith. Enoch Arden, of course, Alfred Lord Tennyson's 1864 poem, was one of his most popular works. Philip Ray is played by Frank Grandin, and Enoch Arden by Wilfred Lucas. The Griffith titles between scenes will be part Griffith explanation and part Tennyson text. Our own narration will be solely Tennyson text. Here on this beach 100 years ago, 3 children of 3 houses, Annie Lee, the prettiest little damsel in the port, and Philip Ray, the miller's only son, and Enoch Arden, a rough sailor's lad made orphan by a winter shipwreck, played among the waste and lumber of the shore. When, if they quarreled, Enoch, stronger made, was master. Then would Philip, his blue eyes all flooded with the helpless wrath of tears, shriek out, "I hate you, Enoch!" And at this the little wife would weep for company, and pray them not to quarrel for her sake, and say she would be a little wife to both. Enoch spoke his love, but Philip loved in silence, and the girl seemed kinder unto Philip than to him. But she loved Enoch, though she knew it not, and would, if asked, deny it. Enoch set a purpose evermore before his eyes, to hoard all savings to the uttermost, to purchase his own boat and make a home for Annie. Enoch had served a year on board a merchantman and made himself full sailor. Philip saw the pair, Enoch and Annie, sitting hand in hand, his large gray eyes and weather-beaten face all kindled by a still and sacred fire. Philip looked, and in their eyes and faces read his doom. Then, as their faces drew together, groaned, and slipped aside like a wounded life, crept down into the hollows of the wood. There, while the rest were loud in merrymaking, he had his dark hour unseen, and rose and passed, bearing a lifelong hunger in his heart. And so they were wed, and merrily ran the years, 7 happy years, with children, first a daughter. In him woke with his first babe's first cry the noble wish to give his child a better bringing up than his had been, or hers, a wish renewed when 2 years after came a boy. Then came a change, as all things human change. His wife bore him another son, a sickly one. He seemed, as in a nightmare of the night, to see his children leading ever more low, miserable lives of hand to mouth, and her he loved, a beggar. Then he prayed, "Save them from this, whatever comes to me." And while he prayed, the master of that ship Enoch had served in, hearing his mischance, came, for he knew the man and valued him, reporting of his vessel China-bound, and wanting yet a boatswain. Would he go? There yet were many weeks before she sailed from this port. Would Enoch have the place? And Enoch all at once assented to it, rejoicing at that answer to his prayer. Thus Enoch in his heart determined all, to become the master of a larger craft, with fuller profits lead an easier life, have all his pretty young ones educated. Then, moving homeward, came on Annie pale, nursing the sickly babe, her latest born. With manifold entreaties, many a tear, she besought him, supplicating, if he cared for her or his dear children, not to go. He, not for his own self-caring, but her and her children, let her plead in vain. So grieving held his will and bore it through. Enoch faced this morning of farewell brightly and boldly. All his Annie's fears were a laughter to him. He prayed for a blessing on his wife and babes, whatever came to him. And then he said, "Annie, this voyage, by the grace of God, will bring fair weather yet to all of us." Annie, from her baby's forehead, clipped a tiny curl. This he kept through all his future. Enoch cast his strong arms about his drooping wife. "Annie, my girl, cheer up, be comforted. Look to the babes, and till I come again, keep everything ship-shape, for I must go, and fear no more for me." And now he hastily caught his bundle, waved his hand, and went his way. And so the day that Enoch mentioned came. At length she spoke, "O Enoch, you are wise, and yet for all your wisdom well I know that I shall look upon your face no more." "Well then," said Enoch, "I shall look on yours. Annie, the ship I sail in, passes here." He named the day. "Get you a seaman's glass, spy out my face, and laugh at all your fears." Philip's true heart, which hungered for her peace, smote him as having kept aloof so long. "Surely," said Philip, "I may see her now, may be some comfort to her." Annie thought of Enoch's talk, how in sailor fashion he had roughly sermonized on providence and trust in heaven. She heard and not heard him, as the village girl who sets her pitcher underneath the spring, musing on him that used to fill it for her, hears and not hears, and lets it overflow. Annie borrowed a glass, but all in vain. Perhaps she could not fix the glass to suit her eye. Perhaps her eye was dim, hand tremulous. Even to the last dip of the vanishing sail, she watched it and departed, weeping for him. She saw him not, and while he stood on deck, waving, the moment and the vessel passed. Then, though she mourned his absence as his grave, set her sad will no less to chime with his, but throve not in her trade, not being bred to barter, nor compensating the want by shrewdness, neither capable of lies, nor asking overmuch and taking less, and still foreboding what would Enoch say. For more than once, in days of difficulty and pressure, she had sold her wares for less than what she gave in buying what she sold. She failed and saddened, knowing it, and thus, expectant of that news which never came, gained for her own a scanty sustenance, and lived a life of silent melancholy. The third child was sickly born, and grew yet sicklier, though the mother cared for it with all a mother's care. Nevertheless, after a lingering, ere she was aware, like the caged bird escaping suddenly, the little innocent soul flitted away. And where was Enoch? At first, indeed, through many a fair sea circle day by day, but last in storm such as drove her under moonless heavens, till hard upon the cry of breakers came the crash of ruin and the loss of all but Enoch and two others. Half the night, buoyed upon floating tackle and broken spars, these drifted, stranding on an isle at morn, rich but the loneliest in a lonely sea. Temporarily, we leave the Tennyson text. On our next program, we'll present the second half of D.W. Griffith's 1911 original version of Tennyson's Enoch Arden. Griffith was fascinated by the story of Enoch Arden, a man unlucky yet invincible, one of the simplest yet loftiest heroes of literature. He made it 4 years later in 1915 in 3 reels with Lillian Gish and Wallace Reed, and then in 1922 as a full feature, The Fatal Marriage. presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. We conclude Enoch Arden, the 1911 film based on Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem, with which D.W. Griffith confounded his biograph company bosses and at the same time made movie history by issuing it in 2 reels. In this half, Griffith increases the tempo and cross-cutting to add to the drama of the classic story of fidelity and heroism. Enoch Arden, played by Wilfred Lucas, frustrated by his inability to earn at home enough to give his family the comforts he wishes for them, has gone on a voyage of speculation, and his ship, the Good Fortune, has met with bad fortune. Unaware of his fate, his wife Annie, played by Linda Arvidsson, and his children anxiously await his return, comforted somewhat by Philip, the suitor she had turned down in favor of Enoch. The occasional titles are the sparse phrases thrown on the screen by Griffith originally to bridge the action. Today, of course, we have the advantage of sound, and our narration consists of actual portions of the Tennyson text. "The ship was lost," said Philip. "The ship was lost. It is beyond all hope, against all chance, that he who left you 10 long years ago should still be living. I grieve to see you poor and wanting help. I wish you for my wife. I fain would prove a father to your children." Then answered Annie, tenderly she spoke, "Dear Philip, wait a while." Enoch's comrades, careless of themselves, hurt in that night of sudden ruin and wreck, lay lingering out a 5 years' death in life. And after they were gone, in those 2 deaths, Enoch read God's warning, "Wait." Before Enoch, haunting him, moved haunting people, things, and places, known far in a darker isle beyond the line. The babes, their babble, Annie, the small house. Annie's own son was silent, though he often looked his wish, but evermore the daughter pressed upon her to wed the man so dear to all of them, and lift the household out of poverty. And Philip's rosy face, contracting, grew careworn and wan, and all these things fell on her sharp as reproach. Thus over Enoch's early silvering head the sunny and rainy seasons came and went, year after year. His hopes to see his own and pace the sacred old familiar fields not yet had perished. There often as he watched, or seemed to watch, a phantom made of many phantoms moved. Then Philip, coming somewhat closer, spoke to Anne. "I do think they love me as a father. I am sure that I love them as if they were mine own. And I believe, if you were fast my wife, that after all these sad, uncertain years, we might be still as happy as God grants to any of his creatures." And so 10 years since Enoch left his hearth and native land fled forward, and no news of Enoch came. Think upon it, for I'm well-to-do, no kin, no care, no burden save my care for you and yours. And we have known each other all our lives, and I have loved you, longer than you know. And so they were wed, and merrily rang the bells, and they were wed. But never merrily beat Annie's heart. Then answered Annie, tenderly she spoke, "You have been as God's good angel in our house. God bless you for it. God reward you for it, Philip, with something happier than myself." A footstep seemed to fall beside her path, she knew not whence. A whisper on her ear, she knew not what. Nor loved she to be left alone at home, nor ventured out alone. Another ship, blown by baffling winds, like the Good Fortune, from her destined course, stood by this isle, not knowing where she lay. Downward from his mountain gorge stepped the long-haired, long-bearded, solitary, brown, looking hardly human, strangely clad, muttering and mumbling, idiot-like it seemed. For since the mate had seen at early dawn, across a break, in the mist-wreathen isle, the silent water slipping from the hills, they sent a crew that landing burst away in search of stream or fount, and filled the shores with clamor. Clothes they gave him and free passage home. What ailed this Annie that ere she entered, often her hand dwelt lingeringly on the latch, fearing to enter? Philip thought he knew. Such doubts and fears were common to her state, being with child. Enoch's fancy fled before the lazy wind, returning till he drew in the dewy, meadowy morning breath of England. When her child was born, then her new child was as herself renewed. Then the new mother came about her heart, and her good Philip was her all in all. Then moving up the coast, they landed Enoch. But homeward, home, what home? Had he a home, his heart foreshadowing all calamity? He reached the home where Annie lived and loved him and his babes. In those far-off 7 happy years were born. Then down the long street, having slowly stolen, but finding neither light nor murmur there, crept still downward, thinking, dead or dead to me. Down to the wharf he went, seeking a tavern which of old he knew. Miriam Lane was good and garrulous, told him with other annals of the port, not knowing Enoch was so brown, so bowed, so broken, all the story of his house, his baby's death, Annie's growing poverty, how Philip put her little ones to school and kept them in it, his long wooing her slow consent and marriage, and the birth of Philip's child. Enoch, poor man, was cast away and lost, she said, and he, shaking his gray head pathetically, repeated, muttering, cast away and lost. If I might look on her sweet face again and know that she is happy. Now when the dead man, come to life, beheld his wife no more, and saw the babe hers, yet not his, upon the father's knee, and all the warmth, the peace, the happiness, he staggered and shook and feared to send abroad a shrill and terrible cry, which in one moment would shatter all the happiness of the hearth. And there he would have knelt, but that his knees were feeble, so that falling prone, he dug his fingers into the wet earth and prayed, help me not to break in upon her peace. He therefore, turning softly like a thief, crept to the gate and opened it and closed. O God Almighty, give me strength not to tell her, never to let her know. He called aloud for Miriam Lane and said, Woman, I have a secret. Only swear not to reveal it till you see me dead. Did you know Enoch Arden of this town? I think I have not 3 days more to live. I am the man. He rose, he spread his arms abroad, crying with a loud voice, "A sail, a sail, I am saved!" And so fell back and spoke no more. So passed the strong, heroic soul away. Thus closes D.W. Griffith's carefully adapted 1911 version of Tennyson's idyll Enoch Arden, published in 1864. Our own narration consisted of verbatim portions of the Tennyson text. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. In 1925, Ann Pennington was one of the well-known stage personalities hired by the small independent film producers in the East in an effort to cope with the California competition. Here she plays Little Mimi, protege of the princess, a prominent Washington hostess. Mimi on the left. The bewhiskered Verlaine had known Mimi in his left bank days in Paris. And of course, they're about to meet again. They both remember that as a younger girl, Mimi had danced in the Paris streets. Now, Mimi would like to forget those days. But Verlaine is not forgetting. Mimi's father had been blind. And Mimi had danced all day to support him in his old age. But she tried to keep it from him. had been brought up to distrust bearded artists looking for models. Pennington's dancing skill and her dimpled knees made her a star of the Ziegfeld Follies and the George White Scandals. She epitomized the flapper on stage as Clara Bow did on the screen. Such stage musicals were not filmed, but luckily Ann Pennington was often called in for guest appearances in New York filmed movies and even did an occasional feature like this one. So her bubbling personality is preserved. Young as she was in Paris, Mimi tried to run the Maison and soon found herself on the horns of the classic dilemma, the struggle between paying the rent and maintaining her reputation. The hero, Keith Arundel. Keith is played by Johnny Walker, a former Edison player. He was popular in the 20s, but never achieved the top popularity that his good looks and ability warranted. His last appearance on film was in another New York-made movie, 1939's Back Door to Heaven, on which he was also production associate for his longtime friend, top director William K. Howard. The almost Victorian double standard of morals, adulation for the artists, and threat of ostracism for the models was to change considerably after 1925. In fact, a film made less than 10 years later, Marlene Dietrich posed for a similar statue and yet went on to marry a titled count. The face seems to us to have no resemblance, but Mimi feels that if it's seen by the public, it would lead her to social ruin. Time for the official unveiling, a gala ceremony. Many of the extras here were members of the Vincent Lopez Orchestra, which had been hired to provide mood music on the set, a stimulus which many silent stars demanded. Though the sculptor was paid to save Mimi's reputation, she was still the Eleanor Glynn heroine of the 20s, the vivacious flapper with a virtuous heart beating behind the beads and giggles. The Mad Dancer was not the strongest film story of the mid-20s, and the double moral standard was already demonstrated as old-fashioned by other contemporary films, such as those of Clara Bow. But in film history, it's a solid example of how film executives rushed to exploit the hot personalities in other entertainment fields. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. As early as 1899, the movies, then invented only a couple of years, attempted to document events in the news. The Dutch homesteaders and the British were fighting the Boer War in South Africa. Although authentic footage was shot in Africa, air travel had of course not yet appeared, and boat travel was slow. To get war footage sequences halfway around the world to American theaters would have taken much too long for them to retain their news value. So enterprising American filmmakers saw nothing unethical in restaging the Boer War closer to home using actors. In this reenactment on a New Jersey farm, a Dutch artillery battery is resisting an attack by British Highlanders. Staged reenactment footage of the Spanish-American War was similarly shot by the Everson studio. Alert turn-of-the-century moviegoers could have known it wasn't the real thing by the way this oncoming Highlander laughs as he goes by the camera. But it still seemed like miraculous news coverage and survives as one of the few film records of an event of the 19th century. Though himself a country boy from Kentucky, D.W. Griffith, in his formative years at Biograph, became fascinated by the everyday dramas of the inner city. The hallway of an East Side tenement, actually a set in Biograph's New York studio on 14th Street, which was then comparatively uptown. At times, it will be hard to see little Kathy, partly because she's so small, but also because cameraman Billy Bitzer never anticipated the frame cropping later caused by sound requirements and the even later television screen cutoff. The upstairs boarder comes in from shopping and drops a piece of bread. Though he's the neighborhood miser, he can't resist being nice to Kathy. The titles are our movie museum substitutes for the decomposed and missing original titles, as close in text and spirit as we can reconstruct them based on the one-page scenario in the files. Before he leaves town, sneak thief Jules will enjoy some stolen pastry in the little courtyard by the cellar stairs. We've tried hard to identify the little girl playing Kathy. It was neither Adele DeGard nor Gladys Egan, who usually played Biograph little girls, but were a little older than this one. And of course, this was 20 years before Shirley Temple first appeared. The miser checks his safe, covered by a carpet and almost off screen. Kathy pays off her debt. As the thieves approach via the roof next door. Kathy quite likes the miser's apartment. He forgot to count up something. The miser's private ledger was not necessarily illegitimate. This was 1911, and the personal income tax didn't start until 1914. Kathy thinks it's bedtime. The thief with the mustache is played by Wilfred Lucas. The other is Charles Mayles. Both versatile Biograph repertory actors. Kathy ingenuously tries to protect her friend. The combination, or Kathy goes out the window. The original sneak thief, Jules, retires in the court below. The dummy substitute for Kathy is made to look quite real. Strings twitch her legs. But next, in a closer shot with a net underneath, it's really Kathy, who drops her doll. The sneak thief's original victim spies him. Will the police believe a thief reporting a robbery? The thief's original victim, the baker, is played by Bobby Harron, who would play leads in most of Griffith's later features. Alfred Hitchcock once commented that there was something of Griffith in every film ever made, including, of course, his own. So, and not so indirectly, this simple suspense climax is a forerunner of many similar, if more elaborate, Hitchcock climaxes, ranging from the hero and his girl tied to a collapsing stair banister in Number 17, the hero trying to save the villain from falling from the Empire State Building in Saboteur, and of course, Cary Grant, hanging from the presidential faces on Mount Rushmore in North by Northwest. Some film historians say the miser is played by Eddie Dillon. We disagree, but we haven't been able to identify who it really is, not one of Biograph's regulars. The end is best summed up by the original Biograph subtitle, quote, "He experiences a love greater than the love for gold," unquote. The Miser's Heart, Griffith, Biograph, 1911. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. Juvenile delinquency, as depicted in 1914, in a film notable for its realism. The Making of Crooks was released as a lesson for neglectful parents, an example even then of the screen's tendency to mask the exploitation of lurid living as a deed of social therapy. Ross O'Neill is visited by the wife of Tony's former cellmate, Mrs. Robert Walton. Scenes of naked graft were to all but disappear from the screen for a long while, but not, of course, from real life. Much later, the movies were to deal with graft openly again. The political fix was a frequently used theme in the movies of 1915, however, and Walton is released. There is an implication that the warden is in on the fix. Walton has celebrated his freedom with a new mustache. Tony has still not settled on a new career. Tony is played by Jack Pickford, whose real-life career was a dramatic and tragic story in itself, ending in death at age 37. Chump Bob sees himself a big winner at Kelly Pool. He, of course, is one of the lads whose fate is to be our lesson. Striped shirts were high style for the young men about town in 1914. Jack Pickford, now 19, had joined Biograph in 1909, although eventually becoming a star in his own right, playing in Tom Sawyer, Freckles, and The Little Shepherd of Kingdom Come. His fame took longer to achieve than Mary's virtually overnight success, and he was invariably referred to as Mary's brother. The sibling syndrome also faced Floribel Fairbanks and Sid Chaplin. Some stars have solved the problem by using different names, like sisters Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine, or brother-sister Warren Beatty and Shirley MacLaine. Bingham is another of the parentally neglected lads led into temptation. '30s gangster classics like Public Enemy and Angels with Dirty Faces followed the tradition established in movies like this one of showing the pool hall as a breeding place of crime. Tony is too smart to take a drink. Ironically, for Pickford, in real life, it was just the opposite. His marriages to stars Olive Thomas and Marilyn Miller were wrecked by his excesses. Bob, fleeced of his money, helps plan a robbery. Bingham gets away. O'Neill's protection pays off. Elmer is the next to try to recoup his losses from one misjudgment with the gains from another bigger one. Surprisingly, the Alhambra, California, Savings Bank volunteered its front door as a robbery location. The car make, circa 1913, is not ascertainable as it's considerably modified, what we might call a hot rod. The Selig studio, operating in both Chicago and Hollywood, was one of the most important, pioneering in serials and features, and developing, though not holding on to, a number of important stars, including Tom Mix. Very few of their films survive, so The Making of Crooks is considered by movie historians to be an important representative film. There are some things not so old-fashioned here. After-hours clubs have always been a popular menace. And the habits of the guests haven't changed much either. Tony and O'Neill's daughter arranged to sneak away. It was from this era that Dior, the designer, many years later got his inspiration for the flat look. Here it's daylight, not because early movie makers shot night scenes by daylight, which of course they did, but because this is a dawn party. And this is Bingham's car. In the interests of melodrama, movie makers often stretched time. Here the train takes about 20 seconds to go a few yards, though it must be going at 60. Jack Pickford's last big success was to be with B. Lilly in 1926's Exit Smiling, a perfect title for any actor's swan song, though he did make several more films, including Gang War in 1928, a kind of sequel to The Making of Crooks. Bob. Elmer. Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. In 1896, the motion picture camera, still a novelty, had been used only indoors. But in that year, an enterprising biograph cameraman got permission to photograph His Holiness, Pope Leo XIII, in the Vatican Gardens. The Pope's aides instruct him to recognize the photographer. Little did the Most Holy Father realize then that the clumsy, fluttering box he was looking at would make it possible for future generations, scores of years later, to receive his cheerful blessing around the world. "1776 was one of the first movies with a little girl who was to become queen of the screen and America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford. It was also one of the first movies to attempt to recreate history on the screen. Hessian patrols are close on the heels of the American messenger hero, played by Owen Moore. Made by D.W. Griffith and Billy Bitzer, the film is based on an incident which supposedly took place right here near Cutterbackville, New York, where these scenes were shot. Though the landscape, even in 1909, is much more manicured than it could possibly have been in 1776. Owen Moore was Mary Pickford's first husband and was to be a popular star of the 20s, though his drinking made him unreliable and first-rank stardom eluded him because of it. The cement facing on the bricks, though fragmented, is also an anachronism. The mortar used by the colonials wouldn't have been so smooth. The wounded messenger tries to hide out in his own home. Into the chimney. The colonial interiors, actually sets at Biograph's New York 14th Street studio, like the Cutterbackville exteriors, are not entirely authentic. The messenger's youngest sister is Mary Pickford. And the Hessian sergeant is easily decoyed by her. In the early days of the Revolutionary War, the anti-British colonists were, of course, in the minority, but a home like this was the subversive underground. Fortunately, the Revolutionary War was one of the few wars in which Americans have had to experience the invasion of their homes. And of course, then, we weren't yet officially Americans. Mother foolishly asks the two daughters to carry out the laundry hamper. Just soiled linen, says Father. The Hessians were the mercenary troops engaged by the king. The British and Hessian uniforms were practically identical, except the Hessian was blue, and they usually wore the tall Gothic headpiece, though the corporal here wears a tricorn. Actually, the costumes in this picture probably were more complete and more elaborate than the troops would have worn at the time. Griffith, in writing and directing the picture, established these troops as Hessians out of respect and cordiality to the British at the time he made it in 1909. Father mourns over the body of his patriot son as two Hessians busy themselves at the table. Not planning strategy, they're playing cards. The fireplace, window, stairs, and table of this set are all within a few feet of each other. And with the camera immobile, the actors had to take liberties as if working on the smallest theater stage. Also, since this is a night sequence, it would originally have been tinted blue, thus darkening the scene and making Father's undetected movements a little more plausible. The outdoor scenes, too, though shot in sunlight, would have been shown on blue stock. This was Mary Pickford's first year in motion pictures, but the same wiles she here uses on this guard were to capture the hearts of the nation in the ensuing 20 years. While the confident Hessians carouse, Mary has changed into the guard's uniform. Well, actually another uniform, as we can see from the close fit. Father arouses the nearby colonists. While the Hessians, if you'll forgive us, are aroused by Mary's pretty sister. With a handful of actors as a motley band of patriots, Griffith intended to convey symbolically the smoldering spirit of independence among thousands of colonists. Father's deed, of course, is also supposed to parallel the ride of Paul Revere. Again, the poured concrete is anachronistic. years later, Griffith was to employ not just a dozen or so, but hundreds of actors in creating The Birth of a Nation, directing and placing them so cunningly that they looked like thousands. Stories about the American Revolution have never been very popular with movie audiences. The Civil War has provided safer ground, and there never has been a movie about the Revolutionary War to rival The Birth of a Nation or Gone with the Wind. Even Griffith's America, a superb spectacle of 1924, for which this 1776 could be considered an early dry run, was not a commercial success. Whatever the dramatic shortcomings of the American Revolution, Biograph was proud of this film in 1909 and announced, quote, "No more interesting or vivid war episode has ever been presented. Beautiful scenery, powerful acting, and unexcelled photography lift it to the very transcendentalism of motion picture art," unquote. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. A 1914 production of Majestic, the company to which D.W. Griffith moved from Biograph. Blanche Sweet had followed Griffith from Biograph. Though personally supervised by Griffith, her awakening was directed by his protege, Christy Caban. Ralph Lewis, on the left as Dr. Blake, the villain, is another silent star who rose with Griffith. He specialized in heavies. The smaller, mustached lawyer, Joseph Allen, is Al Filson. Her awakening develops two themes that were to remain hardy perennials in movie melodrama: the unexpected inheritance and amnesia. Mary is easily persuaded that the intercession of the Blakes is appropriate. The horses need a rest. Dr. Blake is worried about catching the train. The driver says there's plenty of time. And Mary suggests a last look at the western hills. It seems that the other passengers saw Mary roll down the cliff, but apparently not. the search is abandoned. Another cliché that years of increasing sophistication in movies never managed to eliminate, the casual removal of an injured party without any thought of broken bones. Within a few months after this film, Wally Reed's performance in The Birth of a Nation was to catapult him to stardom. Josephine Crowell, the mother here, was also to be outstanding in The Birth. Relishing his new fortune, Dr. Blake suffers a pang of remorse. But Mrs. Blake, his Lady Macbeth, gives him new courage. Mary's specialist is a friend of Dr. Blake. From the beginnings of movies, extreme coincidence has been a poetic license of scenarists. Blanche Sweet was so beautiful, she took no career risk with a careless, windswept hairdo. For half a century, few actresses had such daring. Then came Jill Clayburgh, Jane Fonda, and Farrah Fawcett Majors. But they, too, were stunning to start with. Though Dr. Blake remembers Mary well, to his great relief, she doesn't remember him. We implied that the writers stretched coincidence, maybe, but all these characters had originated in the same Eastern community, so perhaps it's not all that far-fetched for an assistant in the first law office scene to now recall that Dr. Blake inherited his fortune from a girl who fell over a cliff. Mrs. Blake begins to realize it's an operation the patient just might not survive. The operating room accessories may appear minimal, but not only was operating room procedure less sophisticated in 1914, but as far as we know, this was the first portrayal of such an operating room in a screen drama. Bob has called in the police. The operation will proceed with other surgeons. An object is removed, presumably a brain-blocking bone chip, if we may try to put it in layman's language. Bob hits on the ultimate test. Mary doesn't recognize him, Bob, but what about Blake? Blake has to risk it. Majestic was paying Griffith $1,000 a week to work on films like these, but he was actually devoting the greater part of his energies to preparations for The Birth of a Nation. Every one of the people in this scene was soon to appear in its cast. The scent of familiar flowers. The same scent as the flowers he had given her when they first met at the mining camp. Lovely Blanche Sweet made a successful transition to talkies. In one of them, Showgirl in Hollywood, revealing a fine singing voice as she played an aging Hollywood star washed up at 30. This, of course, was before Hollywood dreamed that stars like Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, or Gloria Swanson could launch whole new careers in their 60s. Movie Museum, presenting rare original footage from the first quarter century of motion pictures, selected from the archives of the Kiliam collection. Since Gertie the Dinosaur in 1909, comic strips have often inspired popular movie characters. One of the best was this 1926 version of Ella Cinders. The name Ella Cinders, of course, connoted the Cinderella story pattern. In the little town of Roseville, Ella poses for a portrait to be entered in a Hollywood beauty contest. A virtuoso sequence for vivacious comedienne Colleen Moore, who sees herself as any of the popular stars of the day. Dolores Del Rio. Miss Moore had been an extra in Intolerance, became a Griffith lead in 1917, and her appearance in Flaming Youth inaugurated the 20s flapper era. Lillian Gish. This comedy duel with The Fly was in marked contrast to her starring role the same year in the champion of tearjerkers, Edna Ferber's So Big. Though one of the highest paid and most popular stars, Miss Moore virtually retired when sound came in. She did make a trio of talkies as a favor to director friends and scored opposite Spencer Tracy in 1933's The Power and the Glory. But then she re-retired permanently. But even retired, Miss Moore remained prominent through the fabulous collection of doll houses she exhibited for charity. Supposedly, the contest winner, Ella, has followed her photo to Hollywood, only to discover the contest was a phony. In the 20s, there was a rash of such contests. The supposed winners poured into Hollywood, hopes high, pockets empty, contributing to the community's problems of unemployment and vice. The lot she is trying to crash is the actual First National Studio, shortly to be incorporated into the Warner Brothers holdings. Though the movie Ella Cinders derived from the comic strip character itself had been derived from the face and unique hairstyle of Ziegfeld Follies dancer turned movie star Louise Brooks. This is not really the studio front office, of course, but a set. On this set, they're making a comedy with Harry Langdon, then at his peak at First National. Harry Langdon's helpless boyishness makes him an excellent foil for Colleen Moore's fresh and aggressive style. Unfortunately, each was too big a star for them ever to be teamed together. Langdon's appearance here is comparable to the guest appearances to be made years later on television by one star on another's show. She trips over a spider box, a receptacle for the light cables. In the cage, waiting for his next scene, is Jerry, the most famous of movie lions, excepting, of course, MGM's Leo. What's this, another cable not plugged in? A violinist saws a way to give authenticity to the film within a film. Many silent stars demanded mood music on the set. Hollywood in the 20s liked to feel that its stars were a kind of royalty, so there weren't many films about ordinary screen-struck youngsters coming out to Hollywood and making good. Usually they wound up with the heroine not quite making the grade and settling for a happy married life instead. So this film, at least in our movie museum condensation, is somewhat of an exception to that rule, a Cinderella ending that is not very realistic. But then, the movies that Hollywood makes about itself very rarely are. Colleen Moore, after retirement, lived happily ever after herself as the wife of Chicago investment broker Homer P. Hargrave.